Before we begin, take a breath. This isn't just a podcast, it's a new way to think, speak, and live in English. Welcome to Confluent Podcast, where words flow, confidence grows, and every sip brings you closer to fluency.
I love that intro. And today we have a seriously intense deep dive lined up for you.
We really do. We are exploring a passionate and, well, a highly opinionated commentary on chapters 7 and 8 of Aldous Huxley's dystopian classic, Brave New World.
Yeah, and the source material for this actually comes from a popular online book club discussion. It's led by an English learning instructor, but we are going to leave his identity and his specific program anonymous today.
Right, because we want to focus purely on the ideas here. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this speaker uses Huxley's fiction as a lens to really critique modern Western society.
Exactly. He's dissecting arguments about the dangers of extreme comfort, the loss of traditional values, and what he calls the illusion of utopia.
Now, before we really get into it, I need to make a quick disclaimer for you, the listener. The source material contains some highly politically charged viewpoints.
Oh, definitely.
It touches on modern gender identities, political ideologies, and cultural decay. And we want to explicitly emphasize that we are not taking sides or endorsing these viewpoints.
Right. Our job is simply to unpack the speaker's arguments impartially so you can examine them for yourself.
Exactly. So let's jump into the literary foundation first. Because, before we analyze the real-world critiques, we have to establish the context that triggered them.
Yeah, the catalyst. So in chapters 7 and 8 of Brave New World, the main characters, Bernard and Lenina, visit this place called the Reservation.
Right.
And this is basically a place where people live the quote-unquote old way. They age naturally, they have families, they experience pain, and it's just this organic life.
Which is such a massive contrast to the Brave New World like the City of London in the book.
Yeah.
Because London is just completely sterilized.
Yeah, completely. I mean, aging is masked by hormones, families simply do not exist, and all negative emotions are just erased by this drug called soma.
And so when Lenina visits the reservation, she actually forgets to bring her soma.
Which is a huge mistake for her.
A massive mistake. Because without it, she is deeply shocked and, well, totally disgusted by the sight of old age, dirt, and motherhood. She just can't handle it.
No, she really can't. And this is also where we are introduced to John, who is known as the Savage, and his mother, Linda.
Right, and Linda was originally from the Brave New World, right? But she got stranded on the reservation like 20 years ago.
Exactly. So John is this really unique character. He naively quotes Shakespeare. He literally says, "Oh, brave new world," with the sincere excitement to see this high-tech utopia.
Even though he'll definitely use that quote sarcastically later on.
Oh, for sure.
It kind of reminds me of living entirely inside a smoothed-over permanent social media filter.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Like, Lenina visiting the reservation is kind of like suddenly seeing the raw, unedited footage of real life for the first time. Why does the speaker find this specific contrast so vital to understanding our own world?
Well, the speaker basically uses John's isolation on the reservation to transition into a sociological critique of modern adulthood.
Okay, how so?
So in the story, John is denied the traditional Native American initiation ritual into manhood because he's an outsider. He has blonde hair and blue eyes.
Right.
So because he's denied this, he chooses to go out into the wild to face his own challenges. He forces a rite of passage on himself.
Wow, okay.
And the speaker unpacks this by arguing that traditional societies had these clear, difficult challenges, like fasting alone in a forest to mark the transition from boy to man.
And he thinks we've lost that today.
Exactly. The speaker claims that modern society completely lacks these rites of passage, which results in a culture of like 25 to 35-year-old men who are emotionally weak.
He actually calls them infantile, right? Like overgrown boys.
Yes, overgrown boys. He contrasts this heavily with his own grandfathers, who were pilots facing World War II and raising entire families by the time they were 20.
I mean, I feel like I have to push back on that a little bit.
Go for it.
Is it really just the lack of a literal woods survival test that's the issue? Or is the modern world just demanding completely different, maybe less physical types of maturity?
That's a fair question.
Because, the speaker specifically critiques 40-year-olds obsessing over comic book movies as a sign of this infantile culture. But people have always loved escapism.
They have, but the speaker would say that modern media intentionally keeps people emotionally childlike. He believes it prioritizes short-term entertainment over deep responsibility and history.
Okay, so it's less about needing to survive in the woods and more about not relying on childish things to cope with adulthood.
Exactly. And that leads directly into his next major point, which is where this infantile culture is actually taking us.
Right, the whole idea that the West has basically already become Huxley's dystopia.
Yeah. The speaker asserts that America, Canada, and Western Europe are literally the modern, brave new world.
Which brings up this really fascinating greener illusion that he talks about.
Oh, yeah. This part is super interesting.
He argues that people from poorer, less developed countries look at the West and just see high tech and money. Kind of like John looking at London in the book.
They see the shiny surface.
Yeah, exactly. But they miss the underlying decay, the loneliness, the broken families, and, just a general lack of meaning.
Right. And the speaker actually believes that poor countries often have much stronger families and better, simpler lives because of that struggle.
And he also points to our modern obsession with youth to back this up, right?
Yeah, he heavily critiques celebrity culture, Photoshop, and plastic surgery. He views those things as the real-world equivalents of Huxley's anti-aging chemicals.
We're basically doing exactly what they did in the novel, just with different tools.
Pretty much. And here is where we really need to impartially report some of his more intense claims.
I mean, let's carefully lay out his views here.
The speaker claims that things like transgender identities and what he generally calls quote-unquote communist stuff are evidence of society going against natural law.
And he believes that this defiance of natural law is going to lead to a total societal collapse, right? In the next, 15 to 20 years?
Yeah, a very specific timeline. And we have to frame this strictly as the speaker's view of cyclical history.
Where weak societies eventually collapse into hard times.
Exactly. It's the old quote, good times create weak men create hard times.
And he uses an analogy from The Matrix to explain how people are reacting to this, doesn't he?
He does. He talks a lot about getting red-pilled.
Which means taking the red pill to wake up to the painful reality beneath a comfortable illusion.
Right, waking up from the soma.
So if Western society is literally collapsing from too much comfort, what does the speaker actually suggest the individual should do about it?
Well, he warns about the danger of life being too easy, and he references the animated movie WALL-E to make this point.
Oh, wow, WALL-E. That's actually a perfect comparison.
It really is. In that movie, humans become totally wimp and helpless because technology literally does everything for them. They just float around in chairs.
They lose their bone density and everything.
Exactly. So to fight that, the speaker advocates for adopting voluntary challenges to build up our strength.
Like manufacturing your own rites of passage.
Right. And he highlights his own experiences with this. Like, he engaged in prolonged fasting where he lost 10 kilograms.
10 kilograms, that's intense.
It is, but he made sure to maintain his strength, specifically noting that he could still do 14 pull-ups during the fast.
That is incredibly specific.
Yeah. He also mentions embracing simple living, heavily inspired by reading Thoreau's book, Walden.
So his core philosophy is essentially, don't blindly believe authority or the media. You have to test these things through direct experience in your own life.
Yes. You have to prove to yourself that you can survive without the comfort.
Which really makes you wonder, if a perfect utopia is actually impossible, as the speaker claims, is the only way to find meaning to artificially manufacture our own hardship?
That is the big question.
Yeah.
And the speaker proposes what is essentially a middle way philosophy. We need a balance.
So not too much of either extreme.
Exactly. Extreme hardship, like historical plagues or world wars, is absolute hell. Nobody wants that.
No, definitely not.
But extreme frictionless comfort is also a type of hell because it destroys our physical and mental resilience. We just rot from the inside.
Wow. We have definitely covered a lot of heavy ground today.
We really have.
So just to briefly recap our journey, we explored this highly provocative reading of Brave New World. A reading that sees our modern obsession with youth, extreme comfort, and endless entertainment not as progress, but as a really dangerous trap that weakens us.
Right, and the speaker is basically challenging us to reject the soma of modern distractions and to actively embrace personal responsibility.
It's a completely different way to look at the conveniences we take for granted every single day.
It really makes you second-guess your daily routines.
It does. And I want to leave you, our listener, with a final provocative thought to ponder on your own.
Let's hear it.
If all of your modern conveniences and digital distractions were suddenly stripped away tomorrow, just completely gone, how many of your daily anxieties would instantly disappear? And what new, perhaps more deeply human challenges would take their place?
That is a phenomenal question to end on.
Something to really think about. Until next time.